It's that time of year again. It's the climactic finale of horse racing, the Breeders' Cup World Championships. And this year is, I believe, the 37th running of the Breeders' Cup Classic. And that sounds like an insignificant number, and honestly, it is. There's nothing special about the number 37. But it's another year of Breeders' Cup, and it's another year to try and handicap some races. So, just like I did last year, I will be handicapping the Breeders' Cup Classic. So let's go. So first up, in post position number 1, we have Tacitus, and there were a lot of people giving this horse a lot of chances. There were a lot of different opportunities for Tacitus to finally get his win, because everyone believed he could do it. And he did! He won the Suburban Handicap, but then in the Woodward and Jockey Club Gold Cup, he just completely flunked in a race that he probably should have won. He probably could have won the Woodward Stakes, and the Jockey Club Gold Cup, that was pathetic. That was really bad, and that really turned me off from him. I was willing to give him a chance after all those other losses, but after the Jockey Club Gold Cup, I just kind of tossed him after that. I was not going to use him, and I will not use him this time around. So, toss Tacitus. In post position number 2, we got Tis the Law, and I do like this horse, but I like a lot of horses in here. In general, it's pretty easy for me to consider a horse at least worthy of a chance of victory in this year's Classic, because a lot of horses here are very talented, but also there's a lot of stalkers, and Keeneland is great for stalkers. Have you ever noticed that a lot of the time you'll just see horses going to the lead in a Keeneland race, and then at the very end, some horses coming from the back will spoil the race and win? That seems to be a running thing in Keeneland, so I'm expecting a stalker to win this race, and not one of the front runners, like, say, Maximum Security. But we'll get to that in a bit. More importantly, Tis the Law fits that mold of being a stalker-type horse, along with a couple others, so I think it's definitely a good idea to keep him in mind, because he is a great stalker. The only problem that he had was in the Kentucky Derby, he just waited too long and let Authentic get away. And I think that he'll have a bit of an easier time running in Keeneland. The big question, though, of course, is how is he going to handle older horses, and that's just going to be a question mark that you're just going to have to take if you want to use him. For now, I'd say that he is still probably the best 3-year-old in the world, and I think he is a great choice. But I wouldn't say he is the cinch. A horse that I think is better fit for the role is By My Standards. While he isn't my favorite stalker, he's very close. I really do like By My Standards, and for the odds of 10 to 1, oh, he's worth your money, definitely. He is a stalker that has won off of any pace. As you can see in the far right corner, he won the Ali Sheba off a 25 opening quarter. Same thing applied to the New Orleans Handicap, and the 3/4 of a mile time for that race was 1:14 or something. And then, in the Oaklawn Handicap, he won that off a 23 flat opening quarter and a 1:10 3/4 of a mile time. So he could win these races off of any sort of pace. He can win it slow and he can win it fast. And that's going to be important because I predict that the pace for the Breeders' Cup is going to be fast. There's a lot of front runners and there's going to be a lot of horses lying in wait. And I think that By My Standards is going to be one of the better ones as he can handle whatever pace happens. Even if my prediction of a fast pace doesn't come to fruition, he'll still definitely be in the money. So I do like By My Standards a lot as a stalker, but I think that there's one other stalker that I think is definitely the best one. And that is number 4, Tom's d'Etat. Again, like By My Standards, he's way worth his odds of 6 to 1. And he has some achievements that I think some people are beginning to overlook. For one thing, the favorite in this race is Improbable. Guess who's the only horse who's defeated Improbable this year? That's right, Tom's d'Etat. As well as that, Tom's d'Etat beat By My Standards in the Stephen Foster, and the Whitney Handicap, we can just cross that out. He definitely had an excuse in that race. Not many horses could recover from such an atrocious start. So if we forget about the Whitney Stakes, he's nearly invincible and is strong enough to defeat Improbable and By My Standards on his best day. And you know what? Those are some of the main big contenders in this Breeders' Cup. So Tom's d'Etat will hopefully be ready and won't have a bad start. So I think Tom's d'Etat is definitely a win contender. If he just doesn't stumble, then he is going to be very deadly. He'll be a very deadly stalker waiting right behind the leaders along with By My Standards and Improbable, but he'll also have the ability to outfight them both, as shown in his wins in the Oaklawn Mile and the Stephen Foster. So use Tom's Data at 6-1. Oh, he's worth the money. But now that I've gone through two major win contenders in this year's Classic, it's time to get through two tosses. First up, Title Ready. He hasn't even won a graded stakes race of any sort, and he barely won an allowance optional claimer. The only real thing that really was impressive was his late charge in the Fayette Stakes. You could make the argument that if the race was a mile and a quarter, he would have fared better, but that's stretching it. Overall, toss. Higher Power. I know if you've watched this channel, then most of the time you would hear me talking about how Higher Power is underappreciated. But I think that my patience has worn thin with him this time around, as he has generally failed to fire every single time I gave him a chance in California, and he has never won any sort of stakes race, or been successful in any stakes race outside of California. And since the Breeders' Cup is outside of California this year, I think he's a major toss. I might have still given him a chance if it was held at Santa Anita, since when it was held at Santa Anita, he fared better. But he's never proven to be successful in stakes company outside of California, so that immediately is enough of a reason, in my opinion, to toss him. And then we have Global Campaign, who, while not a toss per se, is still not that great. He's better than Tacitus, that's for sure, thanks to his win in the Woodward Stakes, but I still think he does have a few flaws. While he does look impressive on paper, winning increasingly bigger races and climaxing with the Woodward Stakes, I think that that's where it ends. The Woodward Stakes was honestly not that great. The best horses he had was the very overrated Tacitus, and Math Wizard, who was a one-hit wonder, and Spinoff, who he hasn't really done anything. And besides, Global Campaign had a pretty easy lead. Tacitus was the only one who even tried to oppose him, and Tacitus didn't even do that good of a job. So Global Campaign had a very easy Woodward. You can put that in kind of quotations, like he wasn't winning against Grade 1 caliber horses. So, the Woodward, not really as impressive as it seems on paper, and he won't have that easy front-running lead when he has maximum security on his butt. So, I think Global Campaign is going to be in a lot of trouble, but I wouldn't say it's 100% over for him. He could be a major upset contender, but that is pushing it. For now, I'd say avoid him. Then we've got the favorite, Improbable. This horse has done really good this year for Bob Baffert. And yeah, I'm not surprised that he's the favorite. He's a Bob Baffert trained horse who's on a bit of a roll, winning races like the Whitney, the Hollywood Gold Cup, the Awesome Again, triple Grade 1 winner. Yeah, this is a Breeders' Cup material horse. He's looking good. But I don't think it's exactly as much of a 5-2 cinch as some people believe. Because, of course, there's always the small possibility that he'll get disqualified due to drugs, but that's just besides the point. More importantly, I think Improbable does have a few flaws. For one thing, field size. In the Gold Cup, the Whitney, and the Awesome Again, at most he was racing against 6 horses, and now he's racing against 10. And he didn't do too bad when he was in an open field in the Oaklawn Mile, but he didn't win. His only defeat came when he was racing against a pretty big field that's the equivalent to this, when he lost the Oaklawn Mile to fellow Breeders' Cup runner Tom's Data. How exactly is he going to navigate this bigger field when he's generally had all of his biggest victories come in small races? This goes back all the way back to when he was 2, when he won the Los Al Futurity against like 5 horses, and same with the Shared Belief Stakes. And in between that, he was struggling in the Kentucky Derby. I mean, that wasn't exactly a bad performance, but he didn't win. Have you ever seen Improbable win against a field bigger than 7? Only once in the street sense. Besides that, no. He can still run well. It's just that I don't think he's going to win this. I think that the bigger field is going to be a problem, and he won't have nearly as easy of a trip as, say, in the Awesome Again. So I'd say he's not worth the 5-2 odds. He's a good horse, but I think that Tom's Data, and by my standards, are more worth the risk. Next up on the Baffert trio, we got Authentic. And Authentic is a pretty good horse. He's the Derby champion, but I don't think he'll be the Breeders' Cup champion. To put it simply, his running style puts him at a disadvantage since this is Keeneland we're talking about. But of course, it's not impossible to win on the front, as shown with Bob Baffert's American Pharaoh 5 years ago. But I think Authentic is not American Pharoah by any means, and I believe it's unlikely that he'll be able to take this field gate to wire like he did in the Kentucky Derby. In the Kentucky Derby, he ran fast fractions, but no one kept up with him. He was the one who got away. But it's going to be way harder for him to do that when you have maximum security and also global campaign going to that front. There weren't really many front runners in the Kentucky Derby. It was just Authentic on the lead by himself. This time, though, there's all the makings for a fast pace. And of course, Authentic can handle that, but with the front runners that he has to deal with this time around, and the fact that they're going to be older horses, the toughest competition he'll ever face, I think it's just going to be very hard for him to replicate what he did in the Derby. And as you saw with the Preakness Stakes, when Swiss Skydiver surprised him by taking over the lead before the far turn, yeah, he can be caught off guard and lose. So, yeah, Authentic, I'm not a fan. And the last member of the Baffert trio, we've got Maximum Security. And Maximum Security is, he's not as good as he was when he was on Jason's service. Maximum Security is a cup below himself. He's still a talented horse who can win races, but he barely won the San Diego Handicap. And he did a pretty good job in the Pacific Classic, but the Awesome Again was a clear sign that maybe he's not as good as he used to be. He was just so well beaten. It was just kind of hard to describe. He was just, B-tier Maximum Security, not the A-tier Maximum Security that won the Saudi Cup. So I think Maximum Security is just not going to be in his top form for the Breeders' Cup. He could still do well, and he'll be a good pace setter along with Global Campaign and Authentic, but I just don't feel it. I just don't feel like he's going to win. Maybe if you asked me after he won the Saudi Cup, I would say, yeah, he'll probably win the Breeders' Cup. But now I think it's just going to be hard for him to win. He'll either have to get more drugs than he normally does, or he's going to have to perform some other miracle that somehow doesn't have to deal with doping, which sounds impossible to me, considering this is Baffert we're talking about. But besides throwing shade at Baffert all the frickin' time, I'd say Maximum Security is going to be in the shadow of Improbable, which, as shown in the Awesome Again, seems to be Baffert's star horse for this year's Classic. So that's the final horse for the Breeders' Cup. My final choices, I think I'm going to go with Tom's d'Etat and By My Standards for the win. I'm going to use those two, and I'm just going to hope for the best. Bit simple and a bit short, but you know what? I think it'll work. And if it doesn't, oh well, it's horse racing. Hope you guys enjoyed this preview, and comment on what you think is going to happen in this year's Breeders' Cup, and see you guys next time.